Hi guys, Ramsey here. Welcome back to another video. Today I have a This Is Not a Top 10 episode, and we're going to do it on the violet note. So we did Violet Leaf a couple episodes back, and I was going to combine Violet Leaf and violets together, but one of the advantages of really getting to know people in the community, and the fragrance community is absolutely amazing. Some of the people that I've met are, top-notch quality folks. There is a up-and-coming perfumer, You're a Rose, shared some very important information with me. I'm going to try to basically share it with you guys. I'll probably butcher this, but I'm going to try to share the information that he shared with me. I think you guys would really appreciate it. He basically said that violets are a silent flower. You can't extract material from a violet itself. And so what the perfumer does is it creates a violet accord using ionones. And the violet leaf accord, though, can be extracted. There's an ingredient called methyl octene carbonate, which can actually be naturally extracted from the violet leaf accord. But depending on doses and material, they will give you either the ozonic, watery violet leaf. Don't think of marine fragrances. Just because I say ozonic and watery doesn't mean marine or aquatic. Understand that violet leaves are completely different from a 90s aquatic fragrance. I really enjoy the violet flower accord as well. I enjoy that ionone. It gives me a very purple vibe in my head. And you'll notice that there's one brand that uses violets in so many fragrances. I probably could have even included more, but my desk only has so much room on it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to touch on the fragrances that we talked about during the Violet Leaf episode that have both violet leaves and a violet accord. And some of them are some of the most famous fragrances in that category. But before we do that, we're going to do Scent of the Day because it is an absolute banger. Let me get my microfiber cloth. And Scent of the Day is this beauty from François Demachy. This is Dior Homme Parfum. This is the 75 ml version of Dior Homme Parfum, which is now discontinued. They only sell this in 100 milliliter versions now. And sorry about the lighting. I can't figure this circle light out. It never works for me. Let me spray this. It's been a while since I've given this a fresh spray. Man, the atomizer is just amazing on these Diors. You can really control the output. And this is a fragrance that, you know, this fragrance, and among many others, but this is one of my favorite flankers. Dior Homme, the original, the Silver Stem, is my favorite. But the Parfum and the Intense are both very good flankers. And that's the dichotomy of François Demachy. He's like a man split in two. You know, on one side, his most famous creation was Sauvage, which people like me really, we're not very kind to Sauvage, okay? It's the most common fragrance out there. It's almost like a fragrance for people that don't like fragrances. But then he creates these beautiful flankers. Another one of his flankers is actually coming up in this video. But this flanker of Dior Homme the Parfum is so beautiful. It keeps the mixture of this lovely ambrette iris combo, which is all throughout the entire Dior Homme line. It amps up the leather, and in the base you get this spongy, beautiful sandalwood note. And then you get this oud accord. Probably, of course, not real oud, but again, if they say it's real oud, take them at their word. If a brand says it, they're not lying. They're probably just using it in tiny doses, although I've never heard Dior say they use real oud. But there is an oud note that tends to come to the forefront. and this rose note, and this is such a great fragrance. I absolutely love this fragrance. I'm so glad to have a bottle. I don't know what the 100 ml version smells like. Some people say it smells the same. Some people say it definitely smells reformulated. So for me, this is probably the last bottle of Dior Homme Parfum that I would own. This is a 2017 batch code. You can see the batch code right there. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. But great fragrance, great flanker, and that's the thing Demachy does so well. He riffs off of these fragrances, and this is a beautiful fragrance. So that's my scent of the day. I'm trying to wear some of this stuff. You know, Iris is beautiful for spring. This is probably a little bit heavy on for a spring day. It's going to be in the 70s today. And so it's probably a little bit heavy, but whatever. I'm enjoying it. All right, let's get to the fragrances. The first is Gray Flannel. We talked about this on our last This Is Not a Top 10. And Gray Flannel has both Iris Violet Leaves and the Violet Accord. This has this beautiful green galbanum in the opening and a huge floral heart. There's so many florals in this, people don't realize. There's narcissus, mimosa, iris, geranium, rose, sage, and then there's that violet. And the base is a very masculine oak moss and almond and vetiver. I love this fragrance. I think it's highly underrated, but you really have to try to get a vintage bottle. This is the bottom of my bottle. You have to try to get a vintage one way or another. The newer stuff is just not as good. It smells more synthetic. It smells more, it smells reformulated with cheaper materials to save money. And I understand. I mean, brands are definitely going to do that. But I do laugh at some of the young kids who post videos making fun of that. You know, it is a classic. It's one of the best violet leaf fragrances, but there's also the violet note as well, using those ionones like Euro was talking about. Okay, the next one that has both is Hommage à l'Homme by Lalique. This is probably my favorite Christine Nagel fragrance. And Hommage à l'Homme has violet leaf in the top with saffron and bergamot, and then you get this violet black pepper with this very wearable, very Western oud accord in the base with cistus. And this is such a great fragrance. I mean, Lalique as a house, their value for money, if you're somebody on a budget, you could easily own something like this, something like Encre Noire, something like Lalique Pour Homme, and just be set. I mean, you would be set, and you would have some very fine fragrances. You wouldn't have any cheap smelling synthetic fragrances. They put out some really high quality value for money stuff. Okay, next is going to be Tom Ford for Men. 2007 release. This came out in 2000. This is my bottles from 2008. And this is another one of the combo that has both violet leaf and violets in it. There's a tobacco note in the dry down. There's even a Nagamata note in the base, which that note normally is reserved for maybe like heavier fragrances. And so this is more to me of like a spring and summer fragrance. It is, I like the fact that it kind of blends the citruses at the top with a little heavier base underneath. So I'm very excited to wear this spring and summer Tom Ford for Men from 2007. Next is going to be the one and only Green Irish Tweed. The beginning of Pierre Bourdon's transition to creating fresher fragrances, you know, because he started out with Koros. This is so good. This is the older bottle with the fire hose atomizer, as they like to call it. And this fragrance is violet leaf in the top with lemon verbena, peppermint, and then there's violet and Florentine iris. And that trio, by the way, violet, iris, and then lemon verbena, so beautiful. This is spring in a bottle to me. There's even a real Creed ambergris note with that very smooth, silky smooth sandalwood cedarwood combo that Creed basically created, or maybe Pierre Bourdon created for Creed, that they have basically used, and they perfected it while they were creating these bottles when they still, you know, used high quality ingredients. Their new stuff, I feel like it's been reformulated. I would never buy one of the new 50 or 100 milliliter bottles. I feel like that's BlackRock's influence coming in and changing things now that they got bought by BlackRock. You know, it's all about money now. It's about pumping out units. It's not about the love of perfume, which for me, even though they charged a lot of money, they used the highest quality ingredients. So if you're somebody that wants to start understanding fragrances and maybe you want to go to something different than just what you're going to smell at your local Macy's counter, Creed is a great way to start. Get your nose on Green Irish Tweed and Arolfa and Viking and Bois de Portugal and stuff like that. It's a great starter's niche brand, but try to get those older bottles. And if you go for Viking, try to get the 2017 batch if you can find it. They're still floating around out there. You just have to look. Okay, the last one, or second to last one that has the violet leaf and violets in them is Narciso Rodriguez for Him. This is discontinued, sadly. This is one of Francis Kirkjohn's best fragrances. This is lavender, pink pepper, violet, and violet leaf in the top with musk, that white musk that he uses so well. And then amber and patchouli in the base. It gives off this very earthy, very wet soil, almost like wet concrete. You know, it almost feels like that gray nail polish look that they put around the outside of the bottle. So that's Narciso Rodriguez for Him. Next, we're gonna do the final one that has both violet leaf and violet, and then we're just going to get into the ones that focus on the violet accord. This final one is Kingdom of Saudi Arabia by Roja Dove. This is also discontinued, sadly, because I do enjoy this fragrance. This is from his Middle Eastern collection, which they do these countries, you know, this is Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. I also really like Sultanate of Oman. That's a great frankincense fragrance. But this is this fruity fragrance that has a beautiful floral take on it with that oud accord that they created for this line, I think, because you smell it over and over again throughout the line. This is a very complex fragrance, and there's a lot going on. And I think maybe the reason it got discontinued, obviously it didn't sell well. That's the main reason fragrances get discontinued. But I think there was a lot going on that people didn't understand. It has banana and plum and raspberry and strawberry and blackcurrant and apple. That is 5 fruits right there. What does that have to do with Saudi Arabia? I don't think people understood this fragrance. It's a good fragrance, but it's a misunderstood fragrance. It has citruses and artemisia in the top. It has that patented Roja floral heart, which I've spoken about many a times. There's geranium, there's May rose, there's jasmine from grass, there's chamomile, there's violet leaf in the base, which is a strange place to put violet leaf. The violet's in the mid, violet leaf is in the base. So this fragrance has a lot of different moving parts to it. And then in the base, you get the oud, the oak moss, the cinnamon, the pink pepper, pink pepper in the base, again, is very strange. I don't know how they manage that. You get vanilla, you get the oud, you get cacao, leather, musk, a million things going on, like most Rojas. But this actually smells amazing in the heat. It's always hot in Saudi Arabia, so that makes perfect sense. But that fruity oriental with the vanilla, oud with the Middle Eastern vibe, and then the florals with the violet. It's absolutely stunning. So that is Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, discontinued, unfortunately. Next is going to be the first one with just violet. And this is going to be, actually, you know what? Before we do this one, let's do some decants. Let me show you some decants first, because I don't have full bottles. Let's just knock out the decants. This is a fragrance that was sent to me by DL Qualia. Thank you, DL Qualia. I do still plan on doing a first early impressions video on this. I have worn this fragrance to bed, but I have enough to do a final first impression on it. And this is called Harrods Parfum. Now, this is a Harrods exclusive, obviously. Harrods Parfum. It came out in 2019. And this is a take on a fougere by Roja, in my opinion. A spicy, citrusy fougere fragrance is what it feels like. It opens up very citrusy, beautiful citruses in this fragrance. Lemon, bergamot, lime, orange, bitter orange. There is lavender. Of course, it's a fougere take. There's thyme, there's geranium. Again, it's a fougere. And then you get that patented Roja floral, which you'll hear over and over again. There's May Rose, Neroli, Jasmine from Grass, Ylang Ylang, Violet. And then the base is Galbanum, Patchouli, Oak Moss. There is a nice iris note in this. Iris and violet go very well together for me. There's labdanum in the base. Roja loves labdanum. And it's here as well. The problem is the price. From giving this a first wear, just wearing it to bed, not wearing it as my scent of the day, to me, this is not full bottle worthy. It's nice, but I would never spend whatever they're asking. I'm sure it's ungodly. You would smell unique, yes, but it's just a little high on the asking price. Next is a Frederic Malle called Une Fleur de Cassie. And Une Fleur de Cassie is a fragrance that uses that cassia note with florals and even cumin in the start. There's something dirty about this fragrance. The cumin gives off that dirty vibe. There's also this fruity accord because there's an apricot note with rose. Rose and violets are the florals in the heart. There's your violet leaf note. And then musk, sandalwood, and cedarwood. This is a Dominique Ropion. It came out 22 years ago. And, I mean, he's been pumping out quality fragrances over and over and over again, year in and year out. This is a good fragrance. This probably is full bottle worthy. Expensive, but not as expensive as the Roja. And then we're going to go to Davidoff Good Life. This is a Pierre Bourdon. This is a sample that Amouage from Enchanté Perfume sent me. If you've watched any of my channel, you've heard his name over and over and over again. This came out in '98 and it is discontinued. This has this fig leaf, melon, blackcurrant thing going on. The violets in the mid with pelargonium. I'm not familiar with that floral. Magnolia and lemon. So there's some strange notes in this one. But in the base is this tea note. So you get this tea almond thing going on with the fig and the melon. And Pierre Bourdon was big on using melon. He used it a lot. He used it in a Rolfa. He used it in other fragrances as well. That fig melon combo is very pleasing. Is it a nice fragrance? Yes. Is it worth $300 today because of it's discontinued and impossible to find? No, I would say no. This is nice. I'm glad to get to smell it, but I probably won't be picking up a bottle at those prices. Okay, next is one that I will do a first impression on soon. It's from Rich Mitch. It's called Carner Cuirs. So Carner Cuirs is a fragrance that came out about a decade ago. It has cumin and saffron to start, and the violet is in the mid with a bunch of woods. You get this very woody sandalwood cedar combo. And then the base is where you get the leather, but it's kind of a modern take on leather from what I've smelled. It has that Nagamata, that cypriol note I was talking about earlier. And it has leather, of course, in the base, and oud. And so, interesting fragrance. I'm excited to give this a full wear. This is one of the Rich Mitch samples that I haven't had a chance to do a first impression on yet, but I will. And then the final fragrance that uses violet, and I have given this a first impression. You can watch my video. It's called Rake and Ruin by Beaufort, London. This is an insane fragrance. God. It smells like an old ship, you know, like you're on an old ancient ship that just crossed the Atlantic 200 years ago. And there's barrels of alcohol, or I don't know what's in the barrels, but it gives you that old barrel feel. There's licorice. There's iris and violet, which again, that combo seems to be a winning combo. The purple feel of the ionones from the violet, and then the purple feel of the iris. And speaking of iris, the Florentine iris in Dior Eau de Parfum is just beautiful. Such a great fragrance. Okay, next we're going to do some of these full bottles. This is Canon. This is Canon Cologne. This is the made in Canada version. I know they've made this all over the place since this came out in 1966. And this is to me, it feels a little bit powdery. It's a fragrance that feels a little bit powdery. If you think of other fragrances at the time, 1 year earlier, Abbey Rouge came out, and that was a powdery fragrance with vanilla. This is a big, mossy, you can tell by the color of the juice. This has this mossy accord with these beautiful citruses, key lime, Sicilian bergamot, and clary sage. There's cinnamon leaf, lily of the valley, Egyptian jasmine, violet, and frankincense. And then in the base, you get the honey, moss, oak moss, musk, vetiver, patchouli, amber, sandalwood. So the violet's in the mid where it usually is. And I actually really like this fragrance. I was shocked with the quality of this. Now, this could be an older bottle because it came from Amouage. And I did hear some people saying you want the made in Canada version. And so the new ones might not be as nice. I don't know. I've never compared them. This is the only version of this I've ever smelled. But this is a classic. And it does go powdery, but that violet, lily of the valley, jasmine in the base is very unique. Very unique. I really like this fragrance. Okay, another one that I really like that Zhao from Scented Moments has been really hyping lately is this. This is Loewe 001 Man. This is the Eau de Parfum, and you can see I like this fragrance as well. I don't think there's iris in this. At least there's none listed, okay? There's cardamom, Italian bergamot, and Calabrian mandarin orange, with sandalwood, cedar, cypress, vetiver, and carrot seed. The carrot seed is what makes this feel like there's an iris note. So carrot seed comes off as very powdery as well. If you think carrot seed when you smell this, you'll get a carrot seed accord. But the violet, the ambrette, so this is also, it's almost like a riff on Dior Homme because it feels like there's iris and ambrette, which is the two. Remember, I told you there's two combos of ambrette and iris in Dior Homme that goes all across the line. Dior Homme Parfum, Dior Homme Intense. And here, it feels like there's iris and ambrette, but there's not. There's carrot seed and ambrette. So it's an interesting take. It's an interesting modern fragrance. If you like those type of fragrances, or even if you like iris, you should try this because it gives that iris feel, but I don't think there's any iris in this fragrance. Next, we are going to do one of the greatest fragrances of all time, according to perfumers. This is Féminité du Bois. Féminité du Bois was created by Christopher Sheldrake and Pierre Bourdon in the 90s, 92 for Shiseido. And this basically means the femininity of wood. And There's a gorgeous honey plum beeswax thing going on with rose, vanilla, violet, cedar, cinnamon. The cinnamon really stands out in this bottle, but it wears very light. It wears like a second skin. It's not heavy like Dior Homme Parfum is a very heavy fragrance. Féminité du Bois, at least in this version, is light. It's almost like the color of the juice. See how it's like that see-through color? Gorgeous fragrance, though. Many perfumers, when asked, what would you like to, if you could make one perfume from the past, what would it be? They will say Féminité du Bois. All right. Now we're going to go to Samsara from the house of Guerlain, which turns out is a joint effort between Jean-Paul Guerlain and Gerard Anthony, and that's a bombshell to me. This is basically sandalwood, jasmine, and some florals, and the florals include violet. But the main notes are the sandalwood, which is supposed to be Mysore sandalwood in these older bottles, and peach and jasmine. Those are the main notes. But then underneath it all, you get the carnation and rose and violet. Beautiful fragrance. I love when a woman wears Samsara. I think it's absolutely stunning. It's a very meditative, very calming scent to me. Sandalwood does that to me. It's very, relaxing. Take the pressure off your shoulders kind of feel. Okay, now we're going to go to a modern niche fragrance. And this is actually, Parfumo says this is now officially ranked as the #1 men's fragrance. I don't know if that's true or not. But maybe to their ranking, it must now be ahead of Aventus. This is Layton. And Layton has a violet note in the mid, violet, jasmine, geranium, but it's the top with the lavender, apple, and citruses that mix with that woody cardamom vanilla feel in the base that just make this so mass appealing and so easy to wear. I was on a stream, not on a stream, but listening to one of Eugene's streams, and Rudy from Time to Musk Up said basically the exact same thing. Other humans just love this stuff. You just want something simple, easy to wear. Layton is good to have in your arsenal. I know we give Parfums de Marly a lot of grief, and most of it is warranted. But I do like Layton, and I do begrudgingly like Herod from time to time, even though that fragrance is too sweet for me. Okay, another one of Francois Demachy's riffs on a classic fragrance is Fahrenheit Absolute. And this is Fahrenheit with myrrh, which he's great at using. Myrrh, violet, leather, and oud. So they've added oud and they've added myrrh. Those are the two big additions to Fahrenheit. And you notice there's no violet leaf, there's violet. So it feels like a different fragrance in a sense, but it also feels like Fahrenheit still to somehow they made it keep that Fahrenheit feel. Even though there's no violet leaf, you don't get that heavy gasoline opening. You get this very aromatic, with myrrh underneath, kind of the way that he used myrrh in Eau Sauvage Parfum. Great use of myrrh, great use of oud as well in Fahrenheit Absolute. Great use of oud in both of these, because there's oud in this fragrance, in Dior Homme Parfum. That's the thing about Francois Demachy. He's a mystery. I mean, to put out these fantastic flankers. This is a great flanker. This is going for hundreds now online. Is it worth hundreds? I mean, you could definitely do worse. I talked about a $400 Xeryus fragrance the other day called Symphonium that I didn't think was worth $10. So it's all relative. Okay, now we're going to go to a vintage fragrance that in this version is discontinued. It's still being sold, but in a different bottle. This is called Xeryus. And this is Givenchy's take on a fougere. It's very green. It's very aromatic. It has lavender, of course. And it has a floral heart with geranium and carnation and cyclamen. But in the top, there's a lot going on. Along with the lavender, there's also rose, ylang ylang, and violet. So there's and jasmine and lily of the valley. So a big floral opening. The thing about this is a good fragrance, but I like my fougères almost very sharp and bracing. And you don't get that in this. You get this, I don't want to say easy to wear, but there's nothing, you know, there's nothing that just really makes it pop to me. It just kind of flows, almost smooth. I don't want to say smooth, but I can't think of another word. There's a lot going on. There is spruce, oak moss in the base, leather, vetiver. It's a good fragrance and I enjoy it, but it's not my favorite fougere. Let's put it that way. Okay. Next, we're going to go to a fragrance that you never would think there is violet in, and that's why I like doing these videos, because it maybe opens your eyes to a fragrance that you didn't think about before. This is Marlou's Carnicure. This is an animalic musk fragrance that is reminiscent of musk's Kublai Khan. There is civet, there's musk, there's orange blossom, violet, sandalwood, and patchouli. And Fragrantica says a whipped cream note. I don't know what that is, but some fantasy note maybe. This whipped cream type accord. It's basically an animalic floral. And the floral, the big floral here is violet and orange blossom. And, but if you like musk's Kublai Khan, but that's too much for you, check this one out. All right, now we're going to go to the house of Hermes, and this is called Rocabar. This is a vintage bottle, back when it used to look like this. This is a splash. EDT. This is one of my favorite takes using cypress. I love the cypress in this fragrance, but with the cypress, there's carnation, cardamom, violet, cedar, and of course in the base there's oak moss, patchouli, balsam firs, benzoin, and vanilla. So there's some heavy notes, but it's very wearable to me. This is very wearable. It has this horse stable like smell. This used to be wrapped in a blanket when it came, and that blanket was supposed to be reminiscent of the blanket that you put over the horses. So there you go. Interesting take. You wouldn't think there was violet in that either. Another one you might not think there's violet in, although this one maybe not. This one I could see the violet for sure. Lolita Lempicka Eau Masculine. This is the original from 2001. Actually, I think the original had a built-in sprayer. So mine has a pull cap, but still, I don't know if it's discontinued or not. I think it is. Anique Minardo made this. This is this anise. There's an ivy note in here, which is very strange, very rarely used. Beach Hut Man by Amouage uses an ivy note. There is rum and violet in the mid. And also it says orgeat syrup. I don't know what that is. There's tonka bean, vanilla, cedar, and cistus in the base. The aniseed, I'm going to do it. This is not a top 10 anise aniseed fragrances, and this is definitely going to be in it. This is a little sweet, but Anique Minardo does her, you know, tonka bean sweet fragrances in a way that I can tolerate for some reason. D Squared Potion comes to mind. Jaipur by Boucheron comes to mind. There is some sweetness, but for some reason I don't mind it. It doesn't get to me like that. And the violet here mixes with the rum in the mid. And there's also supposedly an absinthe note in the top. So it is a little bit, if you think about it being boozy, you can see that. Although normally I don't think about it like that. I think about it like, you know, with that anise type opening. Excuse me, I'm going to pull a Rich Mitch and hydrate real quick. The halfway through hydration. Okay, next we're going to do another fragrance that I don't think you would think has violet. And this is Eau de Rochas Homme. Man, this reflection is getting really old. Maybe if I turn it down a bit. Can you guys still see me okay if I do that? All right, Eau de Rochas Homme. This is the older bottle. This is the one you want with this cap. And this has This is very similar to a very expensive creed called Neroli Sauvage. And I've had a bottle of Neroli Sauvage. I actually have a bottle. I found it in my attic. It's completely empty. I totally drained it because I love this DNA. And as soon as I found this, I said I will never buy another bottle of Neroli Sauvage. This and Neroli Sauvage came out a year after this, which made me even more mad once I discovered this. And I love this bottle. Look at the background, like you have like your fingers just right here and the water rippled out. Absolutely beautiful. This is citruses in the top with basil, bergamot, lime, orange, lemon, vervain. And then the mid is a lot of florals, more florals than you would expect. Freesia, carnation, jasmine, lily of the valley, rose, violet. And then the base is amber, oak moss, musk, vetiver, and cedar. One of my favorite summer fragrances to wear. I mean, look at the dent. Gorgeous, gorgeous stuff. Okay. Next is an Amouage, and this is called Imitation Man. Speaking of dent, look at the dent in that. Some people say this is their take on Dior Homme. I think this is just their take on Iris and Violet, which go together so well. Iris and Violet is just a winning combination. This has rose. This has a citron note in the top, which is, I think maybe it's a little bit more expensive to use citron as a citrus rather than bergamot. Nutmeg. And then the base is myrrh, leather, vetiver, patchouli, castoreum. And you can smell the castoreum here. Even though it's modern castoreum, this came out in 2018. Still castoreum. It's there. It's a very similar castoreum to what you get in Promise. And I love both of these fragrances. So check that one out if you're not familiar with it. It almost has this vinyl-like smell. Christopher Chong said it was supposed to remind you of the smell of New York in the 1970s growing up. So that vinyl smell was probably intentional. Okay, now I'm going to do one that almost isn't fair because it has a million notes in it, but this is Catalyst for Men by Halston Fragrances. And Catalyst for Men is discontinued. My bottle is a Halston Fragrances ink bottle. This is a partial that I got from my good friend Amouage. This is a 1994 release. The violets in the heart here. In the heart there is... I can't do all the notes, it's impossible, but the top has basil, citruses, vodka, galbanum. The mid has geranium, grass, chamomile, violet, rose, blackcurrant, cinnamon. And the base has this labdanum, leather, oak moss, patchouli, tonka cedar, sandalwood, frankincense, vetiver, amber thing. Roja Dove would eat his heart out looking at the note list on this one. It's so good, though. This is going to be great in the warmer weather, I think. Harry Fremont created this with Elias Hermendis. And if you like complex perfumery, if you can find an older bottle of Catalyst, and how about the old test tube beaker from your old high school science class? Love the presentation. All right, we're going to the left side of the table, and we're going to pull out Antidote for Men. My favorite Viktor&Rolf, hands down. Spice Bomb doesn't have Jack on Antidote. This is a 2006 release, and this is also a very complex fragrance. This is a Pierre Wargny. I believe that's how you pronounce his name. If I'm wrong, please forgive me, Mr. Wargny. Bergamot, grapefruit, cardamom, orange, mint. There's mint in the opening of this, believe it or not, and you can smell it. But it instantly goes into this beautiful floral, woody fragrance with some amber labdanum base going on, and vanilla. It has so much going on. There's also iris in the base, so there's that iris-violet combo, but there's lavender. So it's fresh, it's floral, but there's heaviness underneath. It doesn't last more than 6 hours. That's the bad part. Its longevity is not very good, but if you just want a beautiful fragrance for yourself for 5 or 6 hours, Antidote by Viktor&Rolf is an absolute no-brainer. Okay, next, we're going to go to one of the best leather fragrances of all time. This is Beene by Robert Piguet. And this is the EDT. Galbanum and aldehydes in the top with a huge floral heart, carnation, jasmine, rose, violet, and probably the biggest leather civet combo you will smell. This is very close to Cabochard by Parfums Grèce, which I think Eugene just bought a bottle of that, so I'll have to get his thoughts. But Bandit is huge. It's a very butch leather. The violet just plays into that floral heart. It's a beautiful perfume. If you're a guy that loves leather like me, don't let the fact that that was targeted towards women, you know, back in the 1940s turn you off. Okay, now, I mentioned a fragrance earlier called Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and I said it's discontinued and very hard to find. There is a fragrance that at least plays in the same sandbox as it, that's much cheaper, that you can get. I think it's a great fragrance. It may even be the inspiration for Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. I don't know that. I'm just speaking out loud. I'm just talking out loud. This is Jacques Fath Pour. Now, if you get this bottle, you'll notice a couple things. Look at the cap. If you look on Parfumo, you'll see the newer version. Try to get this version if you can, with the large label and the cap that looks like this. Not the cap that looks like gunmetal gray with the name of Pour L'Homme around it. This scent, this is another one that has mint in the opening with citruses and some woods, but it's the floral fruitiness that at least reminds me of Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. There's raspberry, there's violet, rose, lavender, it's spicy, and then there's patchouli and frankincense. So even though there's no oud, they didn't do oud in 1998, it has that frankincense note. So you get, it does give you a little bit of that Kingdom of Saudi Arabia before oud was really a thing. But I love this fragrance. This is great for spring and summer as far as I'm concerned. Jacques Fath Pour. All right, now we're going to do some more Rojas. Roja's the king of violet. The first is Great Britain. This is the Roja I want a full bottle of. This is the final piece to my Roja puzzle, but it's so expensive. Oh God, Great Britain, man. It's Roja's take on Cuir de Russie, and it doesn't miss. Lemon, bergamot, sage in the top, May rose, jasmine from grass, and violet in the mid. That patented rosier floral heart. And then you get clove, patchouli, oak moss, cedar, tolu balsam, gaiac wood, carrot seeds, juniper, iris. There's iris again, iris violet, styrax, labdanum, leather, ambrette, ambergris. So this has ambrette, iris, and violet. That combo is just beautiful. There's also supposedly real ambergris in this, and then Chiffre Extraordinaire, which is the one that I don't like. If you're gonna get any Chiffre from Roja, don't get this. Get one of the ones coming up here in a second. Chiffre Extraordinaire is this aldehydic Chiffre that supposedly doesn't use oak moss. So they created a Chiffre without using oak moss. And to me, the florals are nice. The tuberose, you get a little bit of this fruitiness from peach and plum. There's supposedly some dirty cumin underneath and civet, but I don't get very much dirtiness. It stays very clean and boring to me, and I like my Chiffres dirty. I like my Chiffres dirty for sure. So if you're somebody that doesn't like dirty fragrances, then you could try Chiffre Extraordinaire. But for me, we've got one coming up that I would probably recommend. Okay, now we're going to go to a discontinued Roja. That's Scandal Pour in the Eau de Parfum, not the Parfum or Parfum Cologne. This is in the vintage Eau de Parfum. This is the guy that sent me the Sahara Noir sample. And this is probably one of my favorite takes on that Citrus Cologne Pour Monsieur YSL Pour DNA. There's basil, spearmint, tarragon, lavender, And then you get the jasmine from grass, lily of the valley, May rose, and violet. There's the violet in the heart. And then the base is ambergris, rhubarb, moss, vetiver, cashmeran, labdanum, patchouli, tonka. It is a citrus. It's almost like a posh smelling. Imagine if you created a very posh smelling Pour Monsieur. That's pretty much what you get to me. All right, so that is Scandal. And then we are going to do Danger. Now, Danger, this is the Parfum version. The Parfum Cologne is shite to me. I don't like it at all. I have a sample. I have done a comparison myself. I did this before I had a channel. And I think the Parfum is the way to go. But unfortunately, $500 for 50 ml is a little bit exclusionary. Oh, this is so good. You guys know my love of Heritage. This is Roja's take on Heritage, but dirtied up. And you know I love my fragrances dirty. There's cumin. The cumin here is what really sets this apart from Heritage, in my opinion. And then the heart is jasmine from grass, lily of the valley, and violet, patented Roja DNA. Rhubarb, leather. I think there's real ambergris in here. They say there is anyway, so we'll take their word for it. Cedarwood, patchouli, vanilla. It's like a Roja version of Heritage, put it that way. It's a beautiful fragrance. It really is. And again, this is my problem with Roja. Roja Dove and François Demachy have somewhat similar problems in that I like their fragrances, but Roja didn't create Heritage. And he obviously riffed on it. And, you know, if you didn't know Heritage, if I didn't know Heritage, if I was just ignorant, all right, not stupid, not dumb, just ignorant, just blind of what happened in the past in perfumery, and I smelled this at a Roja Dove counter, I would be reaching for my wallet faster than you could imagine, because this is me all the way through and through. But because I knew Heritage before I smelled this, I bought this knowing that it was a riff on Heritage. Because it's good. It's a great fragrance. To the average person, though, it's not worth $500 for 50 ml. That's scandalous prices. But as a perfume lover, I couldn't say no. It's one of my favorite DNAs, and I had to have it. It's so good. So very good. Okay, next Roja Dove, again, he loves violet, is Fetish Pour Homme. Now, Fetish Pour Homme is his take on Bel Ami. Again, a take on something else. There is the floral heart, which is where the violet's at. Fig in the heart, jasmine from grass, and narrowly. And then the base is what this fragrance is all about. It's the leather, labdanum, ambergris, patchouli, benzoin, cinnamon, elemi, cardamom. I think even Bel Ami might have a frankincense elemi thing going on with vetiver. And I prefer Bel Ami over Fetish. But again, Bel Ami is one of my favorite fragrances. I had to have this. It was his take. I bought this knowing it was a riff on Bel Ami. If I had never smelled Bel Ami, I would be reaching for my wallet faster than you could ever imagine if I smelled this at a Roja counter. I was talking to one of my subscribers the other day, Al, and he was saying he gets a big incense note out of this. And there is elemi, which feels like frankincense. There's no frankincense or olibanum listed, but there is elemi, which can give off that incense. So I totally understand what he was saying. But to me, it's a bigger, it's a bigger leather fragrance than anything else. So that is Fetish. And then finally, my favorite Roja Dove, you know what it is. It is Diaghilev. Maybe my favorite Chiffre of all time. This really moves me, like Eugene said. No matter who created this, whether it was Roja Dove, whether it was a different perfumer, or whether it was a computer, as is Rumored. Oh, God. Oh, it is breathtakingly beautiful. Just smelling it from the cap. Just smelling it from the cap, the particles just get in my nose and stay for an hour, I swear. God, this is so good. Bergamot, lemon, lime, orange, tarragon, blackcurrant bud, heliotrope, jasmine from grass, peach, mayrose, tuberose, violet, ylang-ylang, ambergris, ambret, benzoin, cedar, clove, cumin, gaiac-wood, labdanum, leather, musk, nutmeg, oak moss, patchouli, peru balsam, sandalwood, styrax, vanilla, vetiver, iris, civet. I just want to wear this all the time. If I had unlimited money, I would buy like 10 bottles of this stuff and just drench myself in Diaghilev. The violet's there, but as you can see, it's part of a huge mixture of notes. And then finally, I saved this for last. This came up yesterday when I did my first impression of Civet de Nuit by Arige Ladore. This is L'air Bleu. And I said that this is a big heliotrope fragrance, and I stand by that. I think it is a big heliotrope fragrance, but it's also a big violet fragrance. And there's violet and iris in this. Again, violet, iris seems to be a winning combination with heliotrope, those purple flowers, right? And I smell, the reason I saved this for last, I don't have a pretty bottle of L'air Bleu. I have a refill, but I don't care about that. The reason I saved this for last is because this gives me the most Ionone smell. That purple, when I think of a Ionone heavy fragrance, which is what Eurorose said violet is in perfumery. It's the dosing of different Ionones, because you can't create a violet smell from extraction processes. You have to create it through building out that accord. This smells the most purple to me, the most Ionone heavy fragrance, if you will. And it's a classic. It's one of the greatest. I can't say one of the greatest Guerlains of all time, but it's a classic. Okay, it's not up there with Shalimar to me. Shalimar is ahead of L'air Bleu. It's not up there with Abbey Rouge or Heritage, because those hold a special place to me personally. But if someone came to me and said, L'air Bleu is my favorite fragrance of all time, it's one of the best fragrances ever created, I could not argue with them. Let's put it that way. So, L'air Bleu by Guerlain. I think this came out in 1912. Jacques Guerlain is the perfumer, and you know, one of the best violet fragrances of all time. One of the best violet heliotrope fragrances of all time, with a beautiful iris tonka thing going on. You really get that Play-Doh vibe in this too. Remember I was saying yesterday in Civet de Nuit, it gives off that Play-Doh-y type vibe because of the heliotrope. Here it's because of the heliotrope and tonka, and they both can sometimes give off that. It's very powdery as well. But needless to say, that's my list of violet. This is not a top 10. I hope you guys appreciated it. Obviously, this takes time to pull everything out. And I couldn't find this fragrance today because I moved everything around, this Jacques Fath. I looked and looked and looked and looked, and it was all the way in the back, hidden. And so I hope you guys appreciate this. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. Give me your feedback down below. I love seeing your faces. I've said it before, a like and a comment is always greatly appreciated, but if you don't feel like it, you don't have to. I'm not doing it for likes, subscriptions, to be YouTube famous, to make money. I'm not doing it for any of that. I'm doing it simply to share my love of fragrances. If you're a violet lover and I don't have one of your favorite fragrances on the list, let me know down below what your favorite fragrance is, violet heavy fragrance is, because I want to put it on the sniff list. So, thanks again, guys. See you again tomorrow. Bye-bye.